Welcome to the next session of LitFest X. We are joined with Dr. Aman Hingorani, who is a very prominent lawyer and mediator in the Supreme Court of India and also in the High Court of Delhi. He has also acted as an arbitrator and an adjunct faculty to teach law students at various prestigious institutions in India and abroad. He has written his latest book called, rather on Kashmir and taking an unconventional approach to the entire Kashmir issue. So today we have them with us discussing the why and how around the Kashmir issue. Aman, thank you for joining us on LitFest X and welcome to this session.
Thank you so much.
Aman, in your book and in your research, you have highlighted the several angles which gave birth to the Kashmir issue. And I know we have a short session, but if you can briefly tell us, what was the kind of research and what were the kind of classified documents which once came into the public domain gave you the insights that you've elaborated on in the book?
Well, the traditional discourse on Kashmir has always been India versus Pakistan. When the British declassified the archives, there's a huge material which shows that the Kashmir issue is actually an end product of the British to partition India. It is the whole politics of partition, the partition which was ostensibly in the name of the two-nation theory, but that also was mounted by the British for their own geopolitical interest. Basically, the British wanted the region in the northwestern area of the Indian subcontinent for this great game with the Soviet Union to offset the Russian influence from coming southwards to the Middle East. We knew that the government of India, which would take over power from the British hands, would not support the British defense interests, geopolitical interests. Nehru had even said that India will not be within the British Commonwealth. So the British wanted a friendly state, a dependable state on the northwestern region of the Indian subcontinent, which was then, of course, which we know now known as Pakistan. And since this region was predominantly Muslim, the British mounted the two-nation theory. They created this theory, got Jinnah to propound it. They are the ones who set up Muslim League initially to offset the Congress influence after 1857. And the strategy worked perfectly well because after independence, Pakistan, which was a creation of the British for their own purposes, is the one which joined all the defense pacts, provided the Western powers. The Great Game was a precursor to the Cold War, and Pakistan of the US or the Western powers against the then Soviet Union. So if you see the Kashmir issue in light of the colonial politics, Kashmir is predominantly Muslim. It is contiguous to Pakistan, and it completed this Islamic descent right from Turkey to China. So it was very important. The British simply assumed that Kashmir would accede to Pakistan. It was very important for them, for the Great Game, for Kashmir to accede to Pakistan. And when Kashmir did not accede to Pakistan, but acceded to India, that's when the dice for the Kashmir issue was cast. The northern areas in particular were part of the crescent. So after accession of Kashmir to India, it is the accession was instituted on 26th October, accepted by the government of India on 27th October. On 30th October, it was the British which did coup of Gilgit, raised the Pakistani flag there and asked Pakistan to take it over. And the British were also, it's a matter of fate, but there are circumstantial evidence to show that the British knew about the tribal invasion to keep another part of Kashmir away from Indian control, and that is what we now call Azad Kashmir. Why that was important was that had the territory been with India, India could easily liquidate Pakistan. So for the West, Pakistan had to survive. And that's the reason they had identified two areas of the state which must remain free of Indian control, even if the state comes to India. One was the northern areas, and other is what we call Azad Kashmir. So my book basically gets into the British archives, documents the telegrams between the Secretary of State, the Viceroy. It documents conversations of Mountbatten and the other people who were there at that point of time, basically to show that the entire partition was scripted by the British, the Kashmir issue was scripted by the British for their own imperial, and later on they led the government of India to commit to the United Nations. Incidentally, Mountbatten, as the Governor General of India, told Nehru that I will sign on the accession of Kashmir only if you commit to plebiscite. It was Mountbatten's suggestion that that's a way to keep the door open for Pakistan to come in. Because Pakistan, otherwise there's no standing. And it was again the British which then led Nehru to commit to the plebiscite for the United Nations Security Council, thereby giving standing to every member of the United Nations to comment on what is happening in Kashmir. So what we call as a terrorist movement, other countries are saying it's a freedom struggle. We created the problem in the first place. And this is documented, all this research is documented, and it is been in public domain in one form or the other through other books. As a lawyer, I have just taken facts from different sources, including the United States.
Hi. So, Aman, you were mentioning how a lot of the facts and evidence that you have mentioned in the book have been out in the public domain through various sources, but you've also got access to, declassified files and information. Tell us a little bit more about some of the new material that has come out into the public domain basis your research.
Well, let me put it this way, is an argument. It is an argument about how Kashmir issue, the genesis of the Kashmir issue, how it was the British which created the particular issue due to their own geopolitical interest. But then what the book does is that having these facts from different sources, what is the way out? And that is again where I try to shift the international plane. It is the international community which must have a say now, that since we are the ones which have international Kashmir issue, we are the ones which have created a disputed status of conflict. We now need a confirmation from the international community that that accession was valid, because we doubted it. And that confirmation can come only the only judicial body, the only body in existence today, which can give that finding, which will be on according as per which even the international community will be bound, can be that of the ICJ. So what the book does is it examines, it locates one part of the solution in law of course issue, but they create a political discourse. One part of the book talks about a legal reference to confirm, so as it were, a title deed to Kashmir, since we are the ones who granted it. And having done that, if we are able to show to the world that India was right all along, then nobody can say it's a freedom struggle going on there. It is then you can removing ASPA, you can talk about restoring autonomy of under Article 370. All those things are constitutionally mandated. India has to respect Article 370. It has to respect autonomy. But we need to get also this finding from the World Court, which says Kashmir is part of India, the entire territory, and the presence of China and Pakistan in parts of the territory constitutes aggression, and then there are legal consequences. In order to appreciate that, we must appreciate few other points. First is, what was the legal status of Kashmir on 15th August 1947? Pakistan has said, and quite correctly, as of 15th August 1947, Kashmir was sovereign. Indian Supreme Court says so. And because it was sovereign, it could accede to India. We must recognize that particular proposition, because so Kashmir was sovereign, and at that time sovereignty vested in the ruler, the wishes of the people were completely irrelevant. And if they were irrelevant, is a political decision of partition formulated by the British and Muslim League, eventually accepted by the Congress. This law, which is made by the British Parliament, the Indian Independence Act, Government of India Act, law which is accepted by both India and Parliament. The question we need to ask is, could Government of India, which was the creator of this law, then commit to say that the wishes be relevant, which is when it is not provided under that law? Can the executive act against its own constitution? And so we need to come out and say India messed up. We messed up in going to the United Nations. We messed up in offering plebiscite or committing to plebiscite. We took Kashmir issue out of the domestic jurisdiction, being international issue. We have to accept these facts. We have to tell the people of Kashmir, you promised us plebiscite, but you never gave it to us. We need to tell them, yes, that promise was made, but it was made against the constitution. It was made against the law. No other princely state, the princely state had been given the option of a plebiscite. So we need to be able to take responsibility for our actions. We need to be able to tell the international community that yes, our political leadership messed up. That's the reason why Noor has gone to the ICJ, because it would involve admission of politically naive our leadership was. So what the book does is, one part of it is locates it, the solution in law on the international stage. The other is, what are we going to do with the mess that is in Kashmir? We don't have bombing in Kashmir. How do you win back the confidence of the people? How do you tell them that you're part of India, you're Indian citizens, you're the constitutional guarantees? When you have the ground realities they fall to see is every day on the TV. So how does the Indian state win back the moral authority in the state? Because law cannot resolve Kashmir issue. Public opinion has laws which are going to be agents of injustice will be violated. It is important that people of Kashmir are heard and their grievances are addressed. So the book then examines the realities in Kashmir. It talks about what are the possible solutions. Is there a diplomatic solution? Is no military solution for sure? What are the solutions in Kashmir? And then conformist, according to me, is perhaps the only viable solution to resolve the issue. Otherwise, this will go on for centuries. And even the solution which I suggested is no easy way forward. It is full of pitfalls. But there is no other option but to do as what I suggested after about 20 years of research which has gone in, after taking a holistic perspective of what the international community says, what Pakistan says, what the Kashmiri people says, what New Delhi says, what is developments right from the time of accession or even before accession till Pathankot or till as late as till May 2016. So after considering all those factors, all the facts which are documented, each particular proposition or fact as stated has a quote as a reference from where I've taken it. And if what these facts are true, if these facts are true as I put it out there, the facts have been documented, evaluation of the facts is mine. So if you ask what is new about the book, what is new about the book is that it suggests a proposal, a proposition of a way forward in Kashmir. It is brutally frank about how we messed up in Kashmir. It takes into account what Pakistan is saying. It takes into account what Kashmiri people are saying. And then it stitches together a way forward, which is a global way forward. In the process, yes, we would have to own up to our mistakes. And that is a political decision, which I don't know whether any government of the day would take or not.
Some very interesting thoughts there, Aman. I want to go back a little and ask you about the great game that you have mentioned in the book that the British needed to play with the Russians, and which, as you suggest, is the reason behind the formation of Pakistan and the issue of Kashmir. So very briefly, if you can just tell us about this great game.
Well, many authors have written about it, including Sarila, for instance, where he also has referred to declassified British archives for the proposition that there has been this tussle between England, Britain, and Russia for control over Central Asia. There was an ideological war as well as the reasons were geopolitical. The British did not want Russia the Russian influence to come towards the Middle East, where there were the wells of oil were there. So traditionally, there has been a cat and mouse game being played. And if you see what happened in the Ottoman Empire, the Middle East, for instance, the Ottoman Empire was a buffer, Russian influence, till Germany came along. And that's when the British joined hands with Russia to disintegrate Ottoman Empire, and I've drawn the comparison between Middle East and India as to the kind of politics that were played. But what was the driving force was Russia. Check Russian influence. There were economic reasons, there were military reasons, there were geopolitical reasons behind this great game. And this, of course, later was taken over or led later on by the US, and it got to war. So this great game is, according to me, the cause of the partition of India. And Kashmir issue is the end product of that partition. Because it was necessary to have Kashmir, it was necessary to have a Middle Eastern sphere of influence for the British. And that's the reason two-nation theory according to Gandhi, was the untruth. 90% of Indian Muslims were converts. You can have Muslim Christians in England, but that doesn't make it two nations. They're British Muslims, British Christians, but there may be different religion. Religion can't be the test for nationhood. Nation theory, I have documented through telegrams how it is the British who asked Muhammad Shafi, for instance, to drop the Muslim prominent areas, populated areas. They are the ones who drew up the plans of partition much before the actual partition, who they told the Muslim League, you mounted, we can't declare it. Jinnah was a secular Muslim, an ambassador to Hindu-Muslim unity for the first 30 years. He was dangling for power. So for him, Pakistan was a means of getting power and nothing to do with religion. Religion was incidental. So I've documented how the British cultivated Jinnah to make him come over from Congress. He was early in the Congress. From Congress to Muslim League, to tell a person who said that I can't even think of dividing the country, to actually mount the two-nation theory due to political expediency. So the also documents how Jinnah was won over, and Jinnah famously said, we got Pakistan not because of the Muslim League, I got Pakistan with my typewriter. So the book is full of anecdotes, it's full of instances which are again documented. The point is very simple, that this is the cause. If this is the cause for the partition, this is the cause for the Kashmir issue, then we have to find the solutions by first rectifying the past. When I say rectifying the past, what I mean to say is we must depoliticize the Kashmir issue. Every law is nothing but politics. Let me put it that way. There is a political decision crystallized into law, and once there's a law which is made, then every organ of the state has to follow it. We need to put the Kashmir issue, subject it to a legal analysis to see what is once there was a political decision and law came about in context binds United Kingdom, which binds India, which binds Pakistan, and which will necessarily be the basis of any possible decision by the ICJ or the United Nations or the UN Charter itself. What is the legal status of Kashmir as of 15th August 1947? What is the Kashmir after accession? Was the wishes of the people relevant at all? All these questions are there which can be answered only in law, because you need to depoliticize Kashmir issue. Due to political expediency, facts have been buried. You need to say very well, this is the minimum common denominator between all the different stakeholders. If this is the minimum denominator, what flows from that? We cannot have countries saying that we will not take actions against terrorists on our land because we don't want to catch a Lady Mandela. Because that's the jihad which is going on there. That political discourse must change. The political discourse can change only by seeing the legal underpinnings of the Kashmir issue, which has not been done so far by any author over the last 69, 70 years. So that's important. I've tried to make it as simple as possible, demystify the law so the layperson can read it, but you do need to take recourse to law to set the stage, to color the entire page mix on which you can then have a conversation. Under the Shimla Agreement, we have said that we will resolve the issues bilaterally, either by discussion, by any other means. Any other means can be a reference to the ICJ. You need a dialogue. So at the time in India and Pakistan, what this book tells you is what ought to be the conversation. There's no point going down the beaten track by saying, well, Pakistan has no standing in Kashmir. We have given Pakistan the standing.
Right.
So there's no point simply closing our eyes to everything. And now with the latest developments of Chinese investment in areas which are part of Kashmir, but which are occupied by Pakistan, China is asking for a legal cover because China knows that that territory is not Pakistani territory. So it is high time that all the stakeholders sit across the table, have a dialogue. This book suggests what New Delhi's stand should be for that dialogue. It's an Indian. My analysis of the Kashmir issue would have remained the same had I belonged to any other nationality, whether I had been of belonging to any other country. The analysis remains the same, but basically this book is a direction to New Delhi that you created this mess. This is a way out for you.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Aman. I know we've been battling a little sort of weak internet connection, but I'm sure people who read your book will certainly be intrigued by the level of research and insights you have given into what caused the partition, what caused the Kashmir issue, and in your own words, some simple but yet onerous solutions to finding peace in the valley. And good luck with all your efforts. And thank you so much for joining us on LitFest X.
A pleasure.